Hello again, poetry lovers. It's great to be back with you again, and nice to have you back with me. If you've gotten around to last week's program, you'll remember we read 3 cowboy poems. Well, I got some feedback on that, including several people who requested another round of such poetry. You may remember that in my quote last week from one of the earliest modern cowboy poets, that is Baxter Black, who said that while the word poetry is about as popular as smallpox, when the word cowboy is added, it makes all the difference in the world. It really takes off. So the best of cowboy poetry is clever and humorous and sometimes also sentimental. Apparently people like that up to a degree. At any rate, I got 4 requests last week to read another round of cowboy poems. And so, since there were no thumbs down, I decided to finish out our cowboy poetry for a while with a couple of additional poems by 2 real cowboys. And these poems, once again, I'll show you this, are coming from this book that was published by the Western Folklore Center. And most of these poems were read in the last few years, and there's a large variety of poems in here. The first one I want to read in this new reading is from a guy named Colen Sweeten. He was known as Western America's Will Rogers, and he lived in Utah. Started writing cowboy poetry about various ranching escapades and cowboy logic and a love for the land long before he ever heard the term cowboy poetry. He was raised on a ranch in southern Idaho, and gradually his fame grew, and he was on radio and television and performed at many cowboy gatherings across Texas. And he got the Idaho Governor's Millennial Award for Excellence in the Arts. That's pretty good for a real cowboy. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2007. You'll notice that I'm wearing my old cowboy hat today, and it's got a lot of miles on it. However, this hat has never been on the back of a horse, at least not with me. I use this hat for hunting pheasants and quail. And you're going to hear about another hat. This poem, My Old Hat, is about a real cowboy in a real cowboy hat. Hey, that's my hat you're laughing at. So just one doggone minute, that hat has been kicked and tromped half flat. Right while my head was in it. It has kept the hot sun off my head. Why, I've even slept in it at night. So it has a right to show some wear. And I'm claiming that same right. The dehorning blood and tractor grease and the groove across the crown are memories of the good old days before I started winding down. Why, it's been shrunk by rain and hail till it wouldn't even fit. But I just soaked it in the horse's trough and went right on wearing it. No, it's not a name brand hat. And I don't recall how much it cost, or all the rigs that ran over it, or how many times it's been lost. Sometimes in summer heat, I'd weaken and trade it for a straw. Then I'd have to hunt it up again when the wind took my new one down the draw. There's no throat latch or fancy band. That hat has never worn a feather. It's just blood and dirt and honest sweat that holds it all together. Oh, I have a 7X resistol hat that I wear when I'm in town, but I want to be under this old one when the chips are coming down. My resistol is as good as new, but while it's been hanging on the rack, this old beat-up hat and I have been halfway to hell and back. Through runaways and thunderstorms, and at times when I've been lost, that hat stuck by me and brought me back, no matter what the cost. After all the years together, I guess it's no mystery. It's my old hat you're looking at. But what you really see is really me. I think Colen Sweeten's written a very sweet, may I dare say it, poem there. And he feels the same way about his hat as I do about my old hat. And believe it or not, the hat that you see on my head is about 20 years old, but it's never been run over by a horse-drawn wagon or a horse. Now, the second poem is on a serious subject, but we'll see how it turns out. It's by a cowboy poet named Pat Richardson. He was raised on ranches where his dad worked. He left home at age 14. He rode colts, milked cows, hauled hay, competed in rodeos, tried to draw like Will James, and dabbled some in writing poetry. And that's what we're going to be dealing with today. He was a funny man and former professional bull rider. He drew cartoons for the Rodeo Sports News, and he was also a pretty good artist. He sold his pen and ink art throughout the West. In 1999, competing against 78 other poets from Canada, Australia, as well as America, he won the Cedar City, Utah Cowboy Poetry Contest. The Academy of Western Artists named him Cowboy Poet of the Year in 2003, and he's still out there writing poetry. So, here's his poem, Suicide. A old cowboy was an ornery cuss. He cheated, stole, and lied. He didn't have a conscience, and you couldn't hurt his pride. His wife had up and left him. His kids wouldn't speak or write. He'd never got a bad horse rode and never won a fight. The neighbors all despised him for the livestock he had stole. For years he had ignored their scorn, but it finally took its toll. He started having flashbacks of the awful things he'd done, till it finally drove him crazy and he loaded up his gun. He said, "They should have shot me back in 1943. But since no one else has done the job, I guess it's up to me." The first two shots he missed himself. They ricocheted around. He got the stove and icebox and knocked his table down. He couldn't get a decent shot. He was moving away too fast. The next shots got his coffee pot and broke his looking glass. He'd allowed for wind and distance, concentrating on the head till the hammer fell on empty. And still, he wasn't dead. He loaded up the gun again. He put in 6 more shells, said, "This time I'll do the job. I'll blow me all to hell." He tried sneaking up behind himself, but didn't have much luck. Each time he pulled the trigger, he instinctively would duck. He made mental calculations which direction he'd duck next. taking bank shots at his shadows till the kitchen was a wreck. He was running, ducking, diving as he emptied out the gun. He shot the house up pretty bad. He missed with every one. "Oh, I can't hit a moving target," he muttered in disgust. "I'd hire someone to do it, but there's no one that I trust." Well, 20 neighbors volunteered to do this grisly chore with this simple explanation. That's what friends are for. Yeah, Suicide by Pat Richardson. Well, I hope that wasn't too outrageous. These poems were both big hits at Cowboy rendezvous, I'm told. But then most of the audience had a few beers before it was Pat's turn to read about the cowboy suicide attempt. Thanks for joining me once again for a poetry interlude. I had fun, and I hope you did too. I'll see you next week. Not sure what I'll be reading then, but I'll try to move around the map and see what I find. Could be interesting. I hope so. Don't miss it. Bye now.